Hello there, bookworms and quillophiles. Welcome to my next episode of BookTalk. So, when you travel, what do you hope to get out of it? A few trinkets from shops you stumble across in your travels? Something to bring home to prove that you went where you said you were going in the first place? Maybe just a camera full of snapshots and a head full of stories to share at your next house party. But have you ever really thought about travel as therapy? As a way to face down the demons we all carry, and yes, we all carry them, one or two, sometimes more. Do you travel to escape, or to confront the things that might keep you tucked away in your own corner of the world? Well, today I'm talking about a book that I've had the pleasure of reading, titled Travelling the Alphabet Geographically, by Sylvia Clare. As seems to be my new mantra since starting this podcast, and especially the book section in particular, this isn't a book I would have picked up on my own. But see, that's one of the great things about what I'm doing, is I'm being exposed to unfamiliar voices, to new perspective, and I'm getting unexpected lessons along the way. I have to admit, in reading this, I identify with Sylvia, and I felt a certain kinship there. I live with what I sometimes call debilitating social anxiety. Unless you have it, you don't really understand it. For me, it's having the desire to go places, paired with the mental list of reasons why I know, or believe, I won't be welcomed there, or that people are always watching me and judging me. There are times that I just feel more comfortable staying in my house. But I fight through it, and that's where I identify with what I've read in this book. Reading Sylvia's work, I felt the cringe of recognition when she described not belonging and her fears. There's also something cathartic in hearing another person talk about themselves openly, as Sylvia has. It helps others look at their issues like this and see that there can be a way to overcome them. And again, that's part of what I identified with. I also felt inspired by her refusal to let those feelings define her. She doesn't just push through her challenges. She uses them as fuel to live beyond them and overcome them. This book is an emotional, adventurous memoir that transforms what might seem like a quirky challenge, in this case visiting a country for every letter of the alphabet, into a profound journey of healing, mindfulness, and self-discovery. With warmth and wit, Clare takes us on her globe-spanning quest. Each destination becomes a mirror for emotional growth, resilience, and the joy of discovering not just the world, but herself. Even if you don't fully identify with her, you'll feel her journey, and maybe learn something about yourself along the way. I started reading this thinking it was a travel book, and it is. But more importantly, the locations are the stage and the backdrop. The real story is what unfolds on the stage, the experiences, the growth, the reckoning, again, self-discovery. Going through it, I had to write down a few parts that I wanted to share my opinions on. And the first one would be her first trip, Austria. It was her first big trip. It felt like the beginning of her escape from who she feared she was doomed to be. Young, and not yet fully aware of her challenges or the challenges she was going to be facing, Sylvia sensed something was missing, and travel became that magic that helped her find it. This trip wasn't ideal, but it was the first step on a lifelong journey. You could say Austria awakened the traveler within her. The next one that stood out to me for a personal reason was Cuba. I was especially curious about this chapter when I saw it listed on the contents. My wife is half Cuban, and her mother came to the United States from Cuba in 1959, just after Bautista was ousted. Reading about Cuba's architectural preservation efforts reminded me of the stories I had heard on shows I had watched, like, for example, Anthony Bourdain. He traveled to Cuba and he talked about the buildings. Sylvia comments on this in her book as well. Also has brought up the fact that there's a fear that if Cuba gets opened up to the United States, it's going to lose some of its culture. In fact, she makes a comment in the book, I didn't come to Cuba for American culture, I came to Cuba for Cuban culture. And that really does hit home, because I've felt that same frustration in places like Mexico, where you go there and you see McDonald's and Costco and Target and Walmart. That's not Mexico. That's something that was dumped there and has changed it, the way it looks. Her Cuba chapter made me really want to go to Cuba. And I hope that one day my wife and I can do it. The other one that stood out to me was her trip to Ireland. I like to joke about rejecting my Irish heritage in favor of my Scottish roots. I'm like 40% Scottish and 30% Irish. But Ireland is still high on my travel list. Sylvia's time there was brief, and her commentary limited, but it was enough to whet my appetite. The land, the people, the history, the conflict, it all calls to me. It just kind of tickles my wanderlust. I expected this to be organized alphabetically. It wasn't, but it's more chronological. Like a journal you might keep for yourself as you travel places. Rarely are your journals going to be alphabetical. They'll be chronological. That doesn't detract from the story. In fact, it makes it feel more intimate. At times, you get the feeling that you're eavesdropping on a conversation between Sylvia and a trusted confidant, or maybe her therapist. One final note I'll give you, though, is this book might stir your own wanderlust, especially if, like me, you tend to rationalize your reasons for not traveling by leaning on your fears. Sylvia's story reminds us that travel isn't just about going somewhere, it's about becoming someone. And whether we like it or not, when we travel, if we travel for the right reasons, you pick up a little bit of where you are and kind of incorporate it into yourself. And I strongly suspect in reading this book that that is exactly what Sylvia did. Each place she went to was a building block that added to who she has become. And I'm sorry, that is thrilling. That is exciting. And that's what we should all do. Don't travel just to see, travel to become. Thank you for letting me share this, Sylvia. I really enjoyed your book, and I hope to see more from you in the future. And bookworms and quillophiles, should I say. I thank you all for joining me today, and have a great day. And always remember, may your ink always be well spread, your coffee be warm, inviting, and not too caffeinated, and your regrets limited to only those that you can control. Thank you much.